Martin Short and Steve Martin crashing Stephen Colbert's Emmys interview wasn't just a funny side note. It became one of the defining moments of the 2025 Emmy Awards, a night already drenched in both triumph and heartbreak. What unfolded wasn't scripted, wasn't pre-approved by producers, and wasn't something anyone could have predicted. It was one of those flashes of live event magic where comedy and authenticity collide, producing a viral moment that will live far longer than the ceremony itself. Let's set the stage. The 77th Primetime Emmy Awards took place on September 14th, 2025, at the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles. Hollywood's brightest gathered under one roof for television's biggest night. But for Stephen Colbert, the emotions were higher than ever. Just months earlier, his world had been rocked when CBS announced that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, a program he had hosted since 2015, would be canceled in May 2026. This wasn't just another cancellation. It was the end of an era. Colbert had carried the torch of late-night comedy through some of the most turbulent cultural and political years in modern history. Walking into the Emmys, Colbert knew this wasn't just another award show for him. It was a farewell lap, a moment to savor while reflecting on nearly a decade of shaping conversations, making audiences laugh, and giving his team of over 200 staff members a home in television. That context alone made his presence at the ceremony deeply poignant. And then came the awards themselves. Colbert's Late Show didn't just show up, it dominated. It won Outstanding Talk Series and Outstanding Directing for a Variety Series, sweeping categories that affirmed the quality of the work his team had put in, even in its final stretch. When Colbert accepted the award for Best Talk Series, he stood in front of peers who gave him a standing ovation. And instead of wallowing in sadness, he did what he does best. He turned the moment into comedy. Joking that he had resumes ready for his entire staff, he walked the fine line between humor and heartbreak. Even legendary actor Harrison Ford was dragged into the bit as Colbert handed him a resume to give to Steven Spielberg. That joke got laughs, but it also hit home. It was Colbert's way of telling the world that this wasn't just about him, it was about the people who helped him shine. Now picture this. After that emotional whirlwind, Colbert is backstage giving a serious interview. He's poised, calm, reflecting on his journey, when suddenly, chaos. Enter Martin Short and Steve Martin, barging into the frame with the kind of confidence only decades of comedy royalty can muster. They didn't tiptoe in, they didn't wait for an invitation, they simply stormed the interview, flanking Colbert and immediately shifting the tone from serious to hysterical. Colbert, momentarily startled, broke into laughter. The interviewer, caught completely off guard, tried to hold on to professionalism but couldn't resist the comedic avalanche that had just arrived. Short, with his signature animated energy, exaggerated gestures, and infectious grin, played the mischief maker. Steve Martin, ever the dry wit, delivered his understated humor with a perfectly straight face. The dynamic was textbook Martin and Short, a mix of chaos and control, absurdity and wit, honed from years of working together. For audiences watching the clip, it was pure gold. Here was Colbert in a vulnerable and historic moment in his career, surrounded by two friends who reminded him and us that comedy is supposed to be fun. The crash wasn't mean-spirited, it wasn't self-serving, it was an act of affection. It was their way of saying, we're here with you, in laughter, no matter what happens next. And it resonated instantly. Within minutes, the video of the crash started spreading across social platforms. Fans were posting comments like, "This is the real Emmys highlight. Only Martin and Short could pull this off." And Colbert needed that laugh, and so did we. Others pointed out how natural the interaction felt, a break from the polished interviews and stiff PR moments that usually dominate award shows. To understand why this worked so well, you have to understand the history of the men involved. Stephen Colbert first captured national attention with his work on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, where his satirical takes on politics and media earned him a reputation as one of the sharpest voices in comedy. That led to The Colbert Report, a satirical news program where he played a fictionalized, pompous version of himself. For nearly a decade, he perfected the art of parody, earning a devoted fan base. Then in 2015, he took over The Late Show, stepping into one of the most prestigious roles in television. Over the years, he transformed the show into more than just a comedy program. It became a cultural forum. He balanced celebrity interviews with deep political analysis, heartfelt tributes, and comedy sketches that spoke directly to the times. On the other hand, you have Martin Short and Steve Martin. Their friendship goes back decades. Steve Martin became a household name in the 1970s with groundbreaking stand-up comedy and later with films like The Jerk, Father of the Bride, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. His unique brand of absurdist humor reshaped American comedy. Martin Short, meanwhile, broke out on Canadian sketch show SCTV and later on Saturday Night Live, creating beloved characters like Ed Grimley. His career spanned film, stage, and television, always defined by his fearless, over-the-top comedic style. Together, they forged a partnership that became legendary. For years, they toured with a two-man show, blending music, stand-up, and sketch comedy. Audiences adored them, not just for their comedy, but for their chemistry. They weren't just collaborators, they were true friends who clearly loved performing together. That friendship carried into their roles in Only Murders in the Building, a hit Hulu series that paired them with Selena Gomez in a witty whodunit filled with charm and humor. So when Short and Martin interrupted Colbert's interview, it wasn't just a funny gag. It was the intersection of three comedy titans, representing different eras but united by mutual respect. It was a statement that comedy, at its best, is about connection and playfulness. And then there's the public reaction. Fans didn't just laugh, they celebrated. Many saw the moment as a symbol of solidarity, three giants of comedy standing together at a turning point in Colbert's career. Others said it felt like a reminder of why we watch live events in the first place, because they create space for spontaneity. Critics pointed out that in a night filled with scripted speeches and carefully crafted appearances, this interruption was the most authentic thing that happened. For Colbert, it was more than a laugh. It was reassurance. Here he was facing the looming end of his late-night run, but his friends reminded him that comedy doesn't end when a show does. His legacy, like theirs, is bigger than one program. And that's the deeper meaning behind this so-called crash. It wasn't just a prank. It was a moment of love, support, and recognition. It was Martin Short and Steve Martin saying to Stephen Colbert, "You're one of us. You've earned your place in the comedy pantheon, and no cancellation can take that away." The magic of this moment lies in its layers. On the surface, it was hilarious. Just beneath, it was affectionate. And at its core, it was symbolic. Three generations of comedy, each with their own history, converged in a moment that fans will replay again and again. And as the clip continues to spread, it's clear that this wasn't just an Emmy night highlight, it was a piece of television history. So whether you laughed at Short's antics, admired Steve Martin's dry wit, or felt a pang of sadness watching Colbert's laughter, knowing his show is coming to an end, this crash will be remembered as one of those rare, unscripted gems. It reminded us why we watch live events in the first place, not for the trophies, but for the human, messy, funny, heartfelt moments that no one sees coming. And if Stephen Colbert's Emmy night is any indication, he's leaving television the way he lived in it, surrounded by laughter, supported by friends, and celebrated by millions. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more celebrity updates just like this.